Hello everybody.
Next up, we visit the stadium, which, presumably in an attempt to show that architects have a sense of humour too, resembles a toilet bowl from above, where we'll be hosted by Tottenham Hotspur. Kick-off is at 4:30 on Sunday, with coverage by Sky. Trains? Well, if you're coming in from Essex, good luck. Same sort of stuff as last week, although it wasn't quite as bad as BBC Radio Berkshire would have had you believe. The Percy mobile is fitted with one of those music system contraptions that interrupts your favourite pieces of brass band music with the latest traffic news, just as the good bits with tubas in them are about to kick in. During my travels after last week's match, I was constantly interrupted by the news that buses were replacing trains between Shenfield and Newbury, rather than the decidedly more useful Newbury Park. So just be careful which replacement bus you get on at Shenfield, lest you end up somewhere west of Reading. In the meantime, if you're out of work, I believe BBC Radio Berkshire may be looking for a travel report compiler. So, Tottenham then. Of all clubs, their support probably has the biggest gap between their self-perceived status and, well, reality. Whilst other clubs may chant Newport County FC, by far the greatest team the world has ever seen, with tongue firmly placed in cheek, in the minds of Spurs fans, they really believe this to be the case. Things weren't helped the other year when they found themselves part of the so-called Super League, memorably described as like you or I walking into the Crucible Theatre from the pub and sticking 50p on the table. This gives rise to even more heightened expectations. Of course, that sense of entitlement has been alleviated slightly by the proposal to expand said league to 80 clubs, but the die was already set. So, whilst you and I might think that fifth is a perfectly reasonable place for Spurs to be sitting right now, many of their fans would beg to differ, and there are many who would like to see their current manager relieved of his duties. Some are even complaining that he won't be there for Sunday's match, while he takes a bit more time to recover from the removal of his gallbladder. Now, I've no idea what type of surgery the poor chap had, but matron advises me that if open surgery was required, there's a recommended 6 to 8 weeks recovery period. Either way, it seems a bit much to moan about his absence for that reason. Their fifth place at present belies a major problem with consistency. Whilst the better sides go on unbeaten runs or long winning streaks, they don't seem to build up any head of steam. It's all slow, quick, slow with them. Their league form reads drawn, lost, won, lost, 1-1, lost since the return of the break, and it was similar stuff before. Still, at least their press spin doctors didn't have to invent a supported, distracting, spurious record for Harry Kane to break this time around. You'll recall them getting Sky to mention his most goals in a calendar year and most away goals records every 5 minutes when things were going bandy. At least this time, Kane beating the late Jimmy Greaves' Tottenham record is a genuine thing, albeit one so parochial it's hardly worth mentioning outside the toilet bowl. Some of the mumblings from the shell suit wearers have stemmed from the lack of permanent transfer activity in the last window. Daisy informs me that the only permanent deal was to bring in a 19-year-old striker from Chelsea in the form of June Sunzup Bell. One for the future he may be, but hardly the sort of deal to stir the blood, particularly as one suspects that Chelsea haven't actually noticed he's missing yet. The main January activity was on the loan market. They brought in Arnaud Danjuma, who apparently was on the brink of signing a similar deal with Everton before deciding that Spurs was probably the lesser of two evils. Danjuma's previous spell on these shores saw him pick up Bournemouth's Player of the Year, gone a couple of years ago. He does have 8 Dutch caps, but those have been spread over 5 years, and he didn't actually make the Netherlands squad for Qatar. The other newbie was Spaniard Pedro Porro. He's arrived on one of those odd loan with an obligation to buy deals that seem to be all the rage at the moment. He spent 3 years on the books at Manchester City without actually troubling the statisticians, spending time on loan at Valladolid and Sporting, who eventually bought him. His one league appearance for Spurs so far came in the 4-1 humiliation up at Leicester last weekend. With there being no further transfer activity, let's move on, shall we, to the wild and wacky world of association football. And a piece of news so astounding that I had to sit down and have restorative brandy to help me process the information. Well, that's my excuse. The news is that PGMOL have actually sacked a referee. and actually for incompetence and not for doing some hushed-up incident in their private life. OK, Lee Mason was only doing VAR and his departure was by mutual agreement. Yeah, right. But this would seem to mark a radical departure from the organisation's previous policy of defending their employees at all costs. The arrival of Howard Webb as Chief Technical Officer seems to have sidelined Managing Director Mike Riley, whose reaction to the appalling slump in standards appeared to be, well, to try and speed it up. Just think, if only someone had had the ball to root out the incompetent years ago, things might not be quite as bad as they are now. Still, credit where it's due, it's a start. Let's move on to us. And for the second week running, we elected, for some reason, not to turn up until the opposition had taken the lead. Having said that, we did slowly work our way back into the game, and Emerson's goal gave the result that, by full time, was well earned. Chelsea have, of course, been bleating on about the refereeing, and one pundit was claiming that it was possible to fall down to one side without one's arm going out to break one's fall, which, of course, is complete nonsense, as I would have happily demonstrated by pushing the pundit over had I been nearby. Now, it probably merited a spot kick, but there was at least an argument to be had to the effect that it wasn't. Danny Murphy, on Match of the Day, went into apoplexy over the decision. Something that might have carried a little more weight had everybody not known full well he'd have argued the other way had the decision gone the other way. Murphy did get one thing right, though. His comment on referees not knowing the game was spot on. The VAR monitor on this occasion was Swarbrick, who, not a week or two previously, had ignored 3 separate clear and obvious red card challenges at the Brighton-Liverpool game. It seems to get something wrong in favour of the big boys and everyone just shrugs their shoulders. Do something that goes against them and you get suspended, as Swarbrick is this weekend. Meanwhile, in the same match, Bowen ended up on the floor twice in the box with no real review, largely as a result of the sort of challenge that saw the visitors going for the how many times can a player roll around after the softest of Carrex's world record. And as for what would have been our winner, well, yes, Rice was offside, but only because James had pushed him into that position. Since the push came just before the ball was in play, the correct decision would have been to retake the free kick. If Murphy commented on that, I probably missed it. Oh, and a quick note to Chelsea supporters. I don't really think I need a lecture on selling my soul from a club whose supporters bask in the glory of a successful period financed on the back of Russian oligarch money. Remember, Abramovich was banned from the UK long before the UK war prompted sanctions. Back to us, and on the injury front, Areola, Paqueta are definitely out, Zuma, Skamaka and Aguerd probably out, whilst Cresswell has been ill but is likely to make the bench. Meanwhile, Cornet has popped up on Mr. Moyes' tracker app, and apparently the driver is 20 stops away and will be at Rush Green on Monday. We'll see. So to the prediction then. Well, this is always a tricky one to judge because they do tend to raise their game in their cup final, and the probable absence of Aguerd is something of a concern to me. They don't draw many, but I've got an inkling that this trend might be bucked on this occasion, so the £2.50 I was going to chip into the PGMOL redundancy fund will instead be wagered on the scores being level at full time. Mr. Winston, please could you place that sum on a 1-1 draw, and I'll settle up with you soon. Enjoy the game.
We're here in the offices of a Late Late Show with the host of a Late Late Show, James Corden.
Hi.
Big West Ham fan.
Yes. And big knees up Mother Brown, man.
Yeah.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.